Hey everybody, it's Carl's from Immortals Inc. podcast here, and I have Mike on the mic again.
Yes.
And we've brought in today with Travis.
Hey.
Talk a little bit about some small press publications because Lord knows we need them. So if you're ready for some fanzine time, here we go. So anyway, Mikey, the other day, not too long ago, a couple months ago, no, about a week ago. How long ago?
It was probably about a month ago.
About a month ago, we had a couple guys stop in.
Just one guy.
One guy.
I know it's a two-man team, but Zach from, is it Zoacron?
It says zoacron.com. So
yes.
I don't know if that's really their last names, but let me check.
I don't think that's the the company name or the
Brothers Cron of Zoacron. Maybe they're Cron. Oh, it is Cron. Yeah, their last names are Cron.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. Anyway, they stopped in. Well, Mikey, go ahead and tell the story when you can.
Oh, yeah, he just stopped in and he explained to me that, hey, I am promoting my issue 0 zine. And I'm like, what the hell is a zine? And I didn't ask him that, but I sure thought that. And, you know, I feel like you gentlemen would do a better job at explaining what that is and what the purpose of his visit was. But he was a very likable guy. And I did respect the fact that he wants to get started in OSR and implement himself with his brother into the OSR universe and kind of re-implement himself into that scene.
So if I understand it right, zine. Well, the way I always remember zines was zines were like small homebrew publications.
Yep.
They're usually digest size, just basically two pieces of paper folded in half, and you staple them in the middle, and then you publish them for cheap.
Yep.
Like way back in the 80s, back when I was small and young, I like another guy, he was a pretty good artist, and I helped him put out a fanzine called Oh No, Not Another Fanzine. It was dumb, you know. We had nothing, but it was kind of cool. But what was funny was small fanzines. You'd buy them, and you'd send them like $1 money order. Do you know what a money order is?
Yes.
So they send them $1 money order, and they'd send you their little fanzine. It'd have art and stories in it. Some were terrible, and some were good. And then eventually, you would have, as you went on with the comic books or stuff, all of a sudden you'd see these artists that started in the fanzines, all of a sudden in major publications, and it was funny because that was like a place to discover people, kind of like YouTube is now or any other.
Yeah.
Am I right on?
Yeah, and it was also a way for people to get practice.
Yes.
Making fanzines, learning how to do layout, learning how to do graphic design.
Yeah. It was like a hands-on thing.
Yeah.
And it was. I mean, I'm a big fan of learning hands-on stuff. But these guys came in, and you saw it. They have it's called Tome. They have a free premiere issue. They dropped off a bunch, and we gave them away immediately to like a lot of our hardcore OSR role players.
People that appreciate OSR.
Yeah.
And
I would say that's pretty
open source.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't necessarily call that old school, or I mean, it's kind of old school in its sensibilities.
Yeah,
it's sort of old heavy metal punk kind of sensibility to it.
It reminds me. It's just there's no stats or anything in here. It's just stories and background and stuff like that. Like the Tome, it's obviously printed. You know, like you could tell they did all their own artwork. Right?
Yeah, him and his
you
brother
could tell
both
it's like,
do their own.
And I'm not
artwork.
ragging on it, but you could just tell it's like like somebody did it at home artwork.
Yeah, Zach even told me Zach's the one that has like the in my notebook type of drawings. His brother is the one that goes more in depth on those more complex drawings or sketches.
But I think it takes you back to a nice time, and it is for a free little fanzine. It's a little fun. It's got like a little page of a comic book that's like a humor page. The one panel, like remember the old comic books where you have like a panel and it'd be just one little story in 4 panels. That's probably what they did. This is broken down. There's a couple things in here. The first thing they did was like a pick a path adventure. Mm-hmm. But the part about it in the front is in the back they have like scratch off like little things. So when you're doing the pick a path adventure, they go, hey, go here and scratch it off if you want to pick it up, and you scratch it off and whatever it is underneath. It's kind of cool. And then you can use it in the adventure. And then they do like a short story about a wizard and his problematic, what's that called? Minion, whatever, the imp or whatever it was.
Oh, like a familiar?
Yeah.
It wasn't a grumpy wizard, was it?
Yeah, it might have been a grumpy wizard.
Most wizards are.
There was another one with a story, like a little background of an area with a creature in it. And that's the only stats I see is they kind of put a creature in here. And these are OSR stats, obviously. And then, advertise for their fanzine. But this one was free.
Yep.
And they just started developing. And they were giving it out free before the Kickstarter, right? They were saying, hey, this is what we can do with no money.
So issue 1 is releasing January 1st, apparently. That's what he explained to me. And then he just kind of had the whole Midwest tour that he wanted to go on, and he found us along with a few other local stores around here. But I think he's based out of New York, upstate New York, I believe. So
the reason I got Travis in here is because he seems to be more knowledgeable about fanzines or smaller press and stuff like that. Is like, this is not uncommon, or like if you play D&D and you're part of like the big, like you get the big books and everything like that and the big background. There's a lot of small press stuff that's good. Right?
Yes, there is.
And, Travis has examples here. Like, this is not uncommon. This is a kind of a big deal. It's harder to stock because it's irregular and
right. It's probably harder to stock for you because it's individual producers. It's not going through distribution. They're not huge print runs. They're usually sold through Kickstarters or Patreon or whatever local game shop the guy happens to be in,
like a little starter thing. This guy decided to take his own time and drive around and promote his stuff, so we'll give him I appreciate when you come in. I hate phone calls. Hey, you want to give me money? And no, I don't know you, but if you like, even when you told me about it, I'm like, and then I was looking, I was like, okay, yeah, that guy did some work, so
yeah,
I'll give him his time. But you have some examples of some other.
I do. This one is actually one I participated in. I wrote for the first 5 issues of Gary's Appendix. It's a zine about old school essentials, and it's got monsters, articles, little adventures, just a sort of wide variety of stuff in there. He's done. He's working on issue 7
that's
now.
Nice. That's nice art too.
Yeah, and he's done, and that's sort of the thing about zines these days is because you can, hire a artist that's doing digital art from Fiverr or Upworthy or one of those other sorts of places, and get a reasonably good piece of art for not a lot of money, so that you can actually afford to put it on the cover. But then you also get covers that are very simple.
Yeah.
Something like this. This was hand published and stapled with a piece of cardstock and printed and
you could make that
together.
Before even when we were doing the fanzine, we had to go to like a copy store, the library, and it'd get like all goofy. And if you want, you had to buy the big stapler, which we have. It's funny. I still have it.
This one is kind of the same deal. It's just a guy, actually a friend of mine gave me that one at a Gamehole Con.
Hobbs and Friends.
Hobbs and Friends is a podcast that's been around for years and years. He does another podcast called Random Screed, and he has a YouTube channel, and they're just a bunch of guys goofing around, having a good time. They do some stuff at a couple different conventions I go to, and it's just a fun thing. And a lot of these are really actually useful. This one's called the Gong Farmer Militia, Hirelings and Henchmen zine, and it's for Dungeon Crawl Classics, and it's just a listing of henchmen that you could use for your characters to hire to take with them to go into dungeons.
To build them up. Yep. Oh, yeah, like a whole little publication about, hey, I need I want a ragtag group of like the Dirty Dozen instead of like trying to roll them up, pull them out. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That would be an example. And
this one's...
I like that artwork, whatever that cover is.
Yeah,
it looks like it's simple, but it's also like very
effective.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, Jim Ingram, did this one, and this is...
It invokes horror immediately.
It does.
Like I need to pick it up and read it.
And this has...
Darkness.
This has stuff for original D&D. So, sometimes you get games that are out of print or not very well supported, or, they have like a fan base
yeah.
that nobody's played Star Frontiers in 30 years, but we love it.
I know they got like back rules for the last 30 years of like, I got 30
Yeah.
years of characters.
Or they make an adventure for an old out of print game. Maybe they don't put the trademarked name on it, but if you sort of like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you know what this is for.
Yeah. If your frontier is in the stars, this adventure would be good for you.
Yeah. And there's people that play those older games or those older print versions of those games, and they have their little communities. And that's usually what a lot of zines are. They came out of the punk scene, original D&D back in the mid 70s, came out of the wargaming hobby, and wargamers had their own zines, which were usually typed out using just dad's typewriter, and then they used a mimeograph machine from dad's office or from the university or the school, and hand cranked out these things. And there maybe 100 people got them in the Midwest, and they were just part of the culture of wargaming, and that's where a lot of the early knowledge of D&D got passed around through wargaming clubs and gaming clubs in colleges and high school.
Because if you ever also see anything that's really valuable, like when they say it's a manuscript of like the first edition, like say a first edition module, and they have and it's nothing but a typewritten pamphlet, like you said, with the type settings off because it's an old typewriter. Those things go for what? Thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, I wish I could get my hands on one of those. But that's what's valuable, is that, just because it's not big and shiny and good doesn't mean it's, valuable. Like,
right.
Like, yeah, those zines, like, it's hard to say but it's an easy read too. They're zines.
Yeah.
And they're small and they're, cheap usually. Like, would you even consider like that Unspeakable Oath behind you? That would probably be a zine form from a bigger company.
Yeah.
And, that was nothing back then, but now, there's another one called Starry Wisdom, which, by the way, if anybody has a Starry Wisdom, do you remember that?
I don't know.
Man, I supported a Call of Cthulhu something years ago. It had to be in the mid-90s maybe, and it was called Starry Wisdom, and it was a little magazine, and they made a couple. Anyway, I can't find it. I wish I had.
Even if you look at the original 3 books for the D&D box set, was...
a pamphlet.
It's a little pamphlet.
Yeah, it's this size.
It's a digest size pamphlet that was printed at a local print shop in Lake Geneva and assembled and stapled together with like a local high school kid did the art in them.
Oh, you could tell. Yeah, it's just like,
they're literally the same thing as these zines were, but the print shop happened to have some boxes that that were left over from another print run. They had an overstock, and they're like, hey, we'll sell these boxes for 50 cents or whatever. And they said, oh, that'll be great. Instead of putting these in a Ziploc bag like the old war games were sold, they had a box to put them in, which made them look a lot cooler. So they bought those boxes and put them. The reason why those first boxes had that wood grain sort of contact paper on them is because that's what the print shop had laying around, and they're like, oh, this will fit perfect.
That's probably because it was for like some greeting cards or something that they're like, we didn't want these, and that's why they're valuable, because one, they probably weren't made to last that long, and two, they're nobody took care of them, or when they did, they played them and they fell apart, so that's why these are valuable. But
I'd just say that zines are, if you get a chance to pick up a zine at a game shop, or you see a Kickstarter online or something like that, or at a games convention, that you take a minute and, fork out $5 and pick it up. Maybe there'll be something in there that'll be useful to you, and you have this beat up, dog-eared looking thing that you carry around in your gaming bag because you just rely on this weird thing that you picked up, or make your own.
Yeah, if you have an idea, you can do it at home right now. Like I said, it was a pain to go make these back in the day, but now you can do it all at home, and all it takes is some paper and a stapler.
Yes.
And you can make it. And if it's terrible, take if you make it and it's not that good, then somebody will criticize you. It's okay. Learn from it. Keep building. You never know, because you might have a lot of good ideas you want to get out there. You don't have to go to mainstream publishing, or you don't have to spend all this money to do this stuff.
And it's just fun. It's a fun way to express yourself and share stuff with your friends and share stuff with people that you game with, and maybe it doesn't ever go anywhere, but it's a fun experience to do, and by itself that's worth doing.
And it's funny because also these are not, I mean, I'm not saying this about this one or any of these, but some of them, there's nobody like monitoring them. So you might get one, you're like, oh, let me read. Oh my God. It's like, it's like, what did this guy write?
You can do some things in those that you wouldn't be able to do in normal publication.
Like if you want to really write about some horror, there's some horror. You want to write fantasy, or just whatever off the, like even this guy, he has whole worlds and he uses whole different words that are just mushed together, which you're like, okay, it's hard to read for a minute, but then you're like, once you get the rhythm of it, you're like, okay, this is this guy's name, this is this, and it's well done, and it's a world.
It's a way to experiment and have fun and play around, and sometimes you come up with something, and sometimes you don't, and both of those things are fine.
Yeah. So give these guys, it's a zoacron.com.
Yep, you can follow them on socials too. I'll put links down below, but yeah, you can follow them on Instagram too. Zoacron, I think, is their Instagram.
Yeah, and if you liked us, go ahead and grab us, give us a subscribe, because I've noticed that a lot of high percentage to watch, low percentage to subscribe. Just hit the little subscribe button; it helps us out.
Just do a little click.
Check all our social medias. We're on X. We're on Rumble. We're on TikTok.
Yep.
Facebook.
Travis is also on YouTube. Travis, yours is what is your YouTube handle?
Grumpy Wizard.
Grumpy Wizard. I'll put that below. He does a lot of good, informative videos with very inspirational stuff, and I think these are probably just for inspiration too. What?
What'd you say?
Inspiration.
Oh, inspirational.
Yeah, these. I feel like zines are good for inspiration too, right? Like pure inspiration.
Yeah, magic was in you all the time.
Yeah. Friendship is magical. All right, guys. Thanks for stopping.